Hello world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to codingscientist.com. You are watching Hero to Superhero series on coding artificial neural network. Alright guys, let's straight away jump into the IDE. I'm going to open up my Visual Studio IDE and we are going to start with initializing a network. So what it means. So take a look at the code guys. So you are going to look at, I'm going to try my best to explain the line by line code just to initialize the network, the neural network. So open up your IDE and I'm going to leave this set of codes to you folks to access through my GitHub account, or you can reach out to me personally one-on-one. I can also explain to you how each section of this code works, right? At a high level, take a look at it. So basically, I'm using Visual Studio and Python, of course, Python 3, and here we are trying to initialize the network, right? So there are about 18 lines of code overall, and then probably we are getting we are starting with importing the random, and we are importing random from random, of course, and we are going to use the seed data which you have downloaded from my previous lesson. I showed you how to download the weed seeds data from my GitHub. I hope you guys are ready with that, because we are going to use that particular data sets hereafter, right? So guys, so what this code basically does, right? So each neuron, so basically we are starting with something, say creation of a new network which is ready for training, right? Training the data sets. So each neuron has a set of weights that need to be maintained. It's very critical, right? One weight for each input connection and an additional weight for the bias, right? We need to create a bias as well. So we will need to store additional properties for a neuron during the training, while we are training into the neural network. So therefore, we will use a dictionary to represent each neuron. So I hope you guys understand what is a dictionary, what is a tuple, what is a list, and kind of thing. Those are the basics of Python. So I'm not going to teach in this particular series. In case you don't know Python, or even the basics of Python, go back to my previous series or the parallel series on Python. You can pick it up, you can learn, and come back to this lesson, right? So we will be using dictionary to represent each neuron and store properties by name, such as weights. You can see it in the code, right? The weights for the weights itself. And network is basically organized into multiple layers, right? The input layer is really just a row from our training data set, which is the weights data set. The first real layer is the hidden layer. So we are going to make it very short, right? One input, one hidden, and one output. So this is then followed by the output layer that has one neuron for each class value. So we are going to define the class called initialize underscore neural network. So basically we are going to use the object oriented OOPS concept here, right? We will organize the layers as arrays of dictionaries and treat the whole network as a one single array of layers. So it's going to simplify the entire process. Watch this very carefully, guys, because we are writing our own neural network. It is always a good practice to initialize the network weights to very small random numbers. So in this case, we will use random numbers in the range of 0 to 1, within 0 to 1. That is the binary logic. That's why I'm importing the random library at the beginning itself, right? So the function below, you see on this particular section of the code, as you can see, this particular function define initialize underscore network, right? N underscore input. So this is a custom function we are defining here, and one input layer, one hidden layer, and one output layer. You can see all these are defined within the network itself. So it's a pretty tricky part, because you might be under the impression that, hey, there is an input layer, there is an output layer, there are n number of hidden layer. No, we are just creating one hidden, one input, and one output. So that's the way it's going to work. It's going to simplify, right? So it's a pretty simple, straightforward neural network. So basically what's going to happen is the function initial network, which basically creates a new neural network ready for training the data set, right? So it accepts three basic parameters: the number of inputs, the number of neurons to have it in the hidden layer, and a number of outputs. So these are the three basic parameters we are defining within this particular class or a function, I would say, right? So you can see that for the hidden layer, we create n underscore hidden neurons, and each neuron in the hidden layer has n underscore inputs plus weight, right? We are adding the input plus weight to increase the weight for each output. So one for each input column is in a data set, and an additional one for the bias. It gets, sometimes it gets tricky, right? As we go forward in the next lesson, you will understand how to adjust the bias and weights, which I am going to teach you guys, right? You can also see that the output layer that connects to the hidden layer has n underscore output neurons. So basically, each with n underscore hidden plus 1 weights. This means that each neuron in the output layer connects to or has a weight for each neuron in the hidden layer. It's confusing? Do not get confused. Since I know most of the machine learning engineers and AI expert and deep learning experts, they tend to pick up the predefined or pre-built neural network, which is pretty easy, either from Nvidia or Microsoft or Google, ton loads of neural networks. Pick it up and put in your weight, write few lines of code, and your model is ready. Here we are writing our own neural network, which gets pretty complex and tricky. That's why I'm trying to insist upon having very good knowledge on some of the algorithms and mathematical functions and Python programming, right? Anyways, so now if we basically run this particular code, you can see that the code it's supposed to print out each layer one by one. You can also see the hidden layer has one neuron with two input weights plus the bias. The output layer has two different neurons, each with one weight plus bias. So let's see what happens if it runs, right? So we need to try this code running. Now what we can do is, you can once you are ready with this, make sure you don't have any syntax error. So you can either right click and then run Python file in terminal, or either you can use this, or you can also directly run from the top. You can see the triangle. If you are using Visual Studio, if you are used to Visual Studio, it's very easy. In PyCharm, again, it gets a little tricky, but that's easy as well. So I'll leave it to you guys, whichever IDE you want to use it. So let me run this code. We are trying to initialize the network, guys. Countdown begins. 1, 2, 3. Let's see what happens. Boom, there you go. Fantastic. So you can see it here at the bottom, right? In the terminal window, you can see the weights against each neuron has been assigned. Fantastic. So we are able to successfully write our, the initialization of a network. Right now, this is not the end. There are ton loads of things we need to still go at, right? So we are able to initialize the network now. We know that it's confirmed that by running this code, we are able to execute each layer, the hidden layer, the input layer, and the hidden layer and the output layer by looking at the weights of each layer. Now, once you guys achieve this, leave a comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or if you have any kind of valuable feedback. Do reach out to me on my WhatsApp or email. I will be happy to assist you in the lesson 1 itself, that is initializing the network, which is the basics of writing your own artificial neural network. So guys, once you are ready with this, do get back to me, and in the next lesson we will get into the forward propagation. That's the next set of code. That's the continuation of this code, but I'm going to make it as a different section so that you understand bits and pieces of artificial neural network. By end of the session, the last video, we are going to combine all sets of codes together, and boom, I'm going to train the data, and I'm going to show you the output. That's going to be your own neural network. I will see you soon. Goodbye.